welcome back to the Halo series. My name is Douglas Brown, CEO at Halo Consulting. Today we're joined by Matt Strauss, CEO and co-founder at RiseKit. If you're new to this event, Halo hosts monthly virtual roundtable events covering current trends in the HR, tech, and DEI space. Don't forget to check out the Halo mini-series, where we hear from executives taking a deep dive into a multi-part series discussing what is keeping them up at night. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like and subscribe button and sign up for our monthly Halo newsletter, which summarizes current market trends and recaps past events, and that link can be found in the description. Throughout our session, we will cover empowering underrepresented communities and harnessing the power of Grantmakers connections for long-lasting change. Before we kick off the questions, let's get started with you, Matt. Can you share with our audience where you started your career and how it has evolved into starting your own company, RiseKit?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Doug. Love what you all do at Halo. Great people. But thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Matt Strauss. Excited to be on here. I am the founder of RiseKit, the original founder. We also have a number of co-founders. My journey has been a ride. But prior to this, I was in venture capital at an accelerator where I was helping companies raise money. And then I fell in love doing that, but fell more in love with helping under-resourced community members that were job seekers find their first or second job. So I ended up mentoring about 20 people through local nonprofits. And that's when I just realized how hard it was for individuals that were mentoring to better navigate the workforce and employment and supportive service ecosystem that every city has. Of course, mine was just in Chicago, but now that I've been doing this for a number of years, it's hard in every city. So I ended up launching this business. I drew one individual that I mentored. His name is Silk. He ended up getting a big grant to go grow his business. He ended up getting a $30,000 grant and got Alumni of the Year. Got this huge alumni award and this big check on stage. He's giving a speech. He asked me to stand up in front of 1,000 people. I started crying like crazy. That's when I realized that I won't stop crying that day, but also where my heart really was. And so I took a leap of faith, left my day job because of that moment. And here we are.
Wow, that's really impactful, Matt. And I did not know that story you just shared, being on stage, getting called up and giving a speech to 1,000 people. It's really been a remarkable journey, and your company has come such a long way since we first met back in I think at the end of 2017. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny how it all just starts with, it's not just one person, but looking back, it's really one moment really changes someone's life trajectory is what I keep hearing.
Let's dive into the first question, Matt. From your viewpoint, how can grant-making power be used to support underrepresented communities to promote diversity in the workplace?
Yeah, and I love how Halo is so focused on diversity, and just everyone is right now. And in entry level and hourly talent, which is where our job seekers are coming from for their first or second job, a lot of these individuals are coming from under-resourced communities, which means that they often go through local nonprofit programs, job training programs, IT training programs that are often 501c3s or nonprofits. And so they're actually funded by the government in grant making or foundations, donors. And so what I've learned is, money's helpful, right? We all know money helps solve a lot of our problems, but not every problem. Grant makers can do a lot more. They can leverage your connections. They can leverage how they distribute funds. They can leverage so many ways of going about it. I'll talk about these all today. But really the power that I've seen the best grant makers do are introductions. One of our investors, Richard Price, introduced us to, he's a grant maker and investor and philanthropist, every word you can think of represents Richard. Just made 15 introductions to corporations today, not to help RiseKit, but to help community organizations get better access to corporate jobs. That's so hard for these community organizations to get access to them. So that's the best way grant makers and governments can leverage is actually their connection and influence.
Now, if foundations and government grant makers were better aligned, what ways could their grant making influence more DEI placements together?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest problems. There's governments and philanthropic, so it could be United Ways of the world. Not saying it's their fault or anything, but United Ways of the world, Chicago Community Trust, McCormick Foundation, they'll tell you grant making is siloed. So just how we say like everything's siloed in this space, grant making is just as siloed as that. So governments don't often know, internally which groups are they're funding, let alone do the philanthropists and the community foundations. So really, it really comes down to the leaders of our cities coming together to ensure that there's collaboration on that level first. Other ones are actually around just tying outcomes together. Can they agree on a common set of outcomes? It's one of the most talked about meetings that you have in one of these committee meetings or whatever, you have these coalition meetings. It's like, can we agree on the same terminology and outcomes? It's never going to happen. But really, it's just trying to drive everyone to like one meaningful place to collaborate. And it's just really hard to do that right now. I think just because sometimes foundations are competing against one another, which is sad to hear. Really, there's a lot of innovation happening on like the grassroots foundations that want to see change, right? And I'm excited for those to start to blossom because they're all about bottom up growth.
Let's pivot and talk about how foundations and governments can use their grant making activities to really encourage nonprofit partners to adapt to promoting DEI and equity practices.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little background about the job seekers that nonprofit programs are typically serving. So these could be veterans that you used to work with at Jobplex. Uh, these could be refugees, individuals coming out of the justice system, homeless individuals, people of color, really just people that are the poverty line or below receiving SNAP benefits, whatever population it might be. Typically, they're looking for their first or second job. And what we found out are the individuals that are of these categories. They all kind of have one challenge. It's sometimes believing in themselves and being able to overcome their barriers to employment or their challenges or their homelessness or their lack of a resume. And what we found is the most important thing is a very dedicated case manager at a nonprofit program. Someone that will respond to you within 30 minutes of when you meet them, within 10 minutes after you ask for a job lead, within an hour when you have food insecurity. If you have someone like that in your corner, the confidence level of our job seekers skyrockets from sometimes we're seeing 0% when they come up on getting a job, like how confident you're getting a job, 0% for some jobs you say, to literally 80% the more frequent and responsive case managers are. So what we always say, no matter what diversity lens you're attacking, it's really psychology. How can you help inspire your job seekers, and how can you be with them in their corner whenever you can be? Because the faster you respond, the more confidence somebody will get. And I see you not on your head 'cause you're remembering your veteran days.
Yeah, that's really interesting that having a dedicated case manager for the categories of individuals like the veterans, refugees, the homeless, the people of color, etc. But having someone who believes in you and someone that you can find support from. Hearing in those statistics from 0% to 80% is
Yeah.
that's really great to hear.
Well, now think about it, right? In staffing firms, you have recruiters. It's the same concept. You know, People tend to work with recruiters or anyone that is very responsive and very humanistic in their approach. And the challenges in the nonprofit world, there's just a lot of organizations that don't have the technology infrastructure to be so fast to respond, or the processes are out of whack, right? Not even out of control, just out of it's just dysfunctional. And now is an amazing time with technology finally getting to a place to help organizations get the infrastructure and technology they need to be able to, be able to respond like a recruiting firm can within seconds.
Hmm. Let's move on to the next question, Matt. Can you define to our audience what is social capital and how we can scale social capital?
Yeah, so I just had a chat about this yesterday. Social capital is what it kind of sounds like. Financial capital is what everyone wants, that money. In order to get that money, right, typically you need to have connections or you need to have some sort of social capital. Social capital is connections. So I grew up in the Wilmette neighborhood in the North Shore of Chicago, and I am so lucky to be born there. My family worked their tail off, my dad and my grandpa, to grow their business, and my mom to be a math teacher. And that's where I got my first job, through my friend's dad's, I think, cousin or something. And that's just how it works, in areas of wealth that have a lot more opportunities. But in under-resourced communities, it's just not fair. You know, I go to Inglewood, I go to Chatham, I go to Austin, I go to Brownsville all the time in Chicago, all these neighborhoods. It's not fair that economic development isn't there. So that way there's less jobs, there's less opportunities. And so that means you're going to have less social capital. There's less connection, there's less employment opportunities. So unfortunately, a lot of our job seekers that we work with, they might have like one or two people that they know that can help them get a job. And really the rest comes down to community organizations. And we found out that community organizations, they can only sometimes handle between 5 and maybe 20 employer partners, realistically. And so you're having a very slim chance through social capital to get access to the opportunities that somebody deserves. So our dream is to scale that, and that's why I built RiseKit.
So for organizations, Matt, that might only have 15 partners today, is there the ability for these organizations to scale and have 2 to 5x the amount of partners that they have today?
So that's what we're building out at RiseKit. So we found out it's on both sides. The community organization can't scale it, but it's actually the corporation. So the problem that we learned is the application feedback loop takes forever. So who actually applies, who gets interviewed, gets hired, gets declined. It's really hard to manage that because the community organizations need that data to get more grant funding, as well as help their job seekers in real time to address transportation barriers along the way. So how can we help those corporations integrate in their applicant tracking systems so that way they can automate the feedback loop to focus more on finding more partnerships? Because they shouldn't be focusing on typing in their Workday system. Did John Smith apply to a job, get an interview, and then send a CSV file back and forth? We're not doing anyone justice there, right? That's what we're focused on, is trying to scale so we spend less time on those administrative tasks so they can focus more on finding working with partners and working with us to find more.
I feel like the day and age that we're in today, technology and those type of advancements will really allow this type of advancement moving forward. So definitely excited to see what you and your team at RiseKit can achieve over the next couple of years and beyond. The next question we want to address, Matt, what government initiatives can be leveraged to create more opportunities for corporations to easily tap into these underrepresented groups?
Well, let me go back a step before I answer that question, because you brought up an amazing point around technology, and then I'll answer your question in a little bit. Um, yeah, applicant tracking systems have been looked as like the bad guy, right? And I really actually want to give them a lot of credit now because they've taken that heat, right? And they've seen that they have not been as fair as they want it to be, in terms of their algorithms or whatever it might be. And so many of them have actually stepped up, and they've stepped up in ways where they're like, look, we're never going to solve it all ourselves, but we can build a marketplace or integrations to help, other partners build onto our software to address the biases that our ATSs have. So I will say that, what this movement has done with DEI has actually made corporations realize that instead of being the problem, they can be the solution with their ATSs. And that's exciting for me. And I think that's why technology can really change the world in these next few years.
Very
But
cool.
I forgot your question though.
Yeah. So no, thanks for circling back to that technology aspect. The question was, what government initiatives can be leveraged to create more opportunities for corporations to easily tap into underrepresented groups?
You know, um, I'll give you an example. The city of Evanston, we just started working with them. I grew up in Wilmette, used to go to Evanston all the time. So excited to be working with them. And within a week of going live, they invited North Shore Hospital, Northwestern Hospital, Ozinga, and all these huge companies to our software. And what that means is they have a very close knit community, right? Evanston's known to be that, but it's actually more that their leaders are, putting their money where their mouth is. They know that if, they're the city of Evanston and they're the mayor's office, they have access to corporations. Why not use that access and that unfair advantage to spread the wealth to community organizations along the way? So that's what I highly recommend is cities should be doing this at all levels, right? With one simple Facebook post from the mayor's office, the amount of activity you can get and the amount of opportunities you can create for smaller community organizations is astounding. But it just really requires government to focus. And it's hard. Trust me, there's all this chaos that the media does right now. But just doing simple activities like that of spreading awareness that with influence, it goes such a long way.
And Matt, can you share some specific steps or strategies that RiseKit is currently taking or plans to take in order to capitalize on these government initiatives and really increase diversity and inclusion within your organization?
Yeah. So one, we I think we're at like an 83% diversity rate right now in terms of all of our employees are also background friendly. Um, so really internally, it's not for us, it's for our partners. And so about 90% of our job seekers are diverse on RiseKit. And so how we go about, growing this is there's two ways. One, as I mentioned, we get more corporate partners, and the corporate partners realize that they got to be a bigger stakeholder in their community and hire more local and diverse candidates so they can solve their hiring challenges of today's times. That's, of course, what we're mainly focused on. But along the way, we get into government conversations. And this could be anything from being a subcontractor to a community organization for the Justice Advisory Council grant that Lawrence Hall has. So this is a violence prevention program that Lawrence Hall has us as a subcontractor. So that way they could utilize our technology to help justice involved or gang involved individuals get access to jobs and opportunities while their case managers work with them through any trauma or challenges that they might be going through. That's one example of it. Uh, and so what's unique about that though is they already have connections, right? They don't really need connections; they already have them in the South Shore area. Um, the next example though would be the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago Department of Family Support Services. They have 55 nonprofits they give grants to in the Workforce Development Division. And we just had some of the best placement stories. It was just in the Austin neighborhood yesterday, where we worked with a group called Growing Home, and they placed a job seeker that was involved in the criminal justice seeker system into a job at Friedman Seating in the West Side. And, if you go on a coach bus or on the CTA, they make all those seats Friedman Seating. Um, the gentleman that we placed, it was just so amazing. Like that's why I do this work. Like I actually was running late yesterday to my next meeting, and I stayed just to hear him like how excited and passionate he was about his job and just how hard his job was. Like he's literally manufacturing a chair and like the details to get into that, like I was lost within a second, right? And so that is what we need more of. We need ways to help these grassroots organizations like Growing Home, who have direct access to individuals that are going through their toughest times in their life. We need to help Growing Homes of the world, these local nonprofits, get access to the Freedman seatings much faster. And DFSS City of Chicago has helped in some part of those ways to work with us on that.
Thanks for sharing that story, Matt. That's extremely rewarding from your perspective and your team, but also impactful for that individual as well. That was part of the justice system, and now is employed at Friedman Seating. It sounds like that individual is doing some really great work.
That's why we do this. And we just launched a group chat to test it out. So group chat, what we've learned is, based on Indeed's data, 25% of individuals don't show up to their interview. That's on Indeed. With our job seekers, we're a little bit higher due to the barriers to employment, actually quite higher. So we realized that without having group chat to loop in the case manager when an interview request is happening from the employer, that means the case manager doesn't really know until there was group chat that an interview is actually happening. So that's why we also think we're getting higher outcomes now because of this new feature that allows the employer to respond to an email to coordinate a group chat, and that the staff and the jobs can work together to address transportation barriers or whatever might be in their way. Also, like what the employers love is like the community organization like actually helps research the company. Like, oh, Freedom Seating, they make seats, so they kind of coach the job seeker about what's it like to work there, and that also helps the interview success rate too.
That's some really innovative tech that you guys just rolled out over at RiseKit, and probably on the horizon, the numbers and metrics will only increase over time. So that's super exciting for you and your team, as well as the job seekers out there as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah, our team's working hard. So shout out to our team.
From your experience, Matt, how can foundations and nonprofit partners foster a long-term relationship to leverage and align the missions and values of DEI?
You know, I think there's so many ways to go about this question. I've been thinking about how to answer this one, to be honest. So, one, there's a challenge one internally at nonprofits. So, at nonprofit organizations, there's a huge difference between frontline staff members' pay and the directors' pays, right? And the managers. And that's leading to a lot of challenges. Most people sign up to do this work to help people, right? It's like volunteering and helping people and getting paid. But at some point, you realize that you got to make a certain amount of living to take care of your family. So what I've seen is there's a lot of challenges right now in the nonprofit world on that, one, getting that promotion. There's also gender and ethnicity challenges as well as you go higher up the ladder. And so it really does require, and there's been a lot of movement in this now, but it does really require leaders at these organizations to be more vulnerable and listen to their frontline staff, and what their needs are. And I will say, since COVID, it's changed. Like there's a lot more. There's still some groups that are behind, but from getting to know a lot of our organizations, there's been a lot of momentum there. With foundations, one of my favorite examples is Chicago Workforce Funders. Oh no, sorry, Chicagoland, the Chicago Foundation for Women. Uh, they have a really cool initiative where they actually launch 401ks for nonprofit staff members. So that way they can just start to save up for retirement. And they partner with a group that I'm actually on the board of called Of Color. And it's an amazing way that, now she can, Renita is the CEO of the nonprofit. She can go recruit, more talent and say you can start a retirement plan with us. Not many nonprofits can do that. And that's because Chicago's Women's Fund, Chicago Foundation for Women has realized a need, right? It's DEI is not just about always diversity, equity, inclusion. It's just about treating people how they should be treated. And that's just the basic fundamentals of what we all need to do in humanity.
Yeah, I think the world today could really use more of humanization,
Just that's
across
all
the
it is,
board.
right? Yeah.
um, and Matt, just a couple of last questions here. When we think of RiseKit 5 years, 10 years, and beyond, what's the long term vision for yourself and for the company?
We have a few ways to summarize it. First, our vision is no matter what zip code somebody lives in or is from, they deserve equal access to opportunities. So me, that means that social capital is not just, a friend or two or cousin or two that that could get you a job, or just five nonprofits that only have 20 employer partners, right? That's not enough. So to us, it's the vision means that we have scaled and exponentially scaled social capital, as well as what it takes to get a job and how people get that confidence, because we're creating automatic nudges for staff members to reach out to their job seekers if they're quiet. There's so many ways that we can use behavior data science to help realize that vision. And no matter what zip code somebody lives in, there's equal access opportunities. That's on a job seeker view, but we plan to be national in the next 5 to 10 years, where we have a number of corporate partners that are bringing us across the country. Where they want to invite all their local community partners that go to career fairs with them, so that we can kind of bring those onto a software, not just so once a quarter career fair, where they can invite all their job seekers and we manage a whole process with them by their ATS. And then we'll see. There has been interest to expand in other countries, but I don't speak any other languages just yet.
Well, it sounds like you and the RiseKit team have some big ambitions, and I was going to ask, with being locally focused today, if you guys were looking to expand nationally or even globally, and it sounds like that those might be on the horizons in the years to come.
And nationally is right now, yeah. Globally, TBD.
And Matt, can you share with individuals or our audience how they can get involved and support you in your mission at RiseKit?
Yeah, so what we've seen is some of our best employer partners or community organizations or just foundations, any one you think would be interested in this, is through an introduction. So if you're watching this, first, thank you. Second, feel free to go to our website and recommend and fill out a contact form, and happy to chat with you on who you might think would be worthwhile meeting. We just launched similar to what Halo has. We have also like a network called the RiseKit Inclusion Network that Halo has a lot of content on already. And be part of our inclusion network. We'll start having a lot more monthly meetings and just sharing best practices along the way as well. So we'd love to have you part of it.
And as we conclude, is there anything you'd like to share or talk about in terms of the work you're doing today at RiseKit that we haven't already covered?
You know, I think I've been thinking a lot about DEI right now and how, of course, we need more diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think how we all should just kind of think about this along the way is I just read President Zelensky had this in his office. He has no pictures of himself, just pictures of his kids, because every decision that he makes is like, would my kids be proud of that? And just tying us all back to being humans, uh, would you feel comfortable with the way your team is treating all of your colleagues, especially your diverse colleagues? I mean, just how you have to always think about it. And we do that, we'll just keep getting better as a society and country and world. So that's how that is called.
Matt, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. I hope that you and the RiseKit team achieve great success the rest of this year and beyond, and couldn't be more appreciative of your time today.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Doug. Thanks for having me.